Serafin, CEO of Qualtrics. I'm delighted that you came to talk to us today, and thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me, Elaine.
And you're fairly recently in the role of CEO, but you've been at Qualtrics since 2016 and seen quite a lot of change in that time. There was an acquisition, an IPO, and a pandemic. So I can't imagine how that has been a challenge in terms of leadership versus COO and now CEO. Tell us a little bit about your time as CEO and how tumultuous it might have been.
Well, when I joined the company, and it's an incredible company, a company that is focused on tuning into the things that companies want to know about their customers, about their employees. It's what people are telling companies about what they can do to better improve the experiences or build the products that they want. And Qualtrics not only enables companies to do that in a way that creates more empathy, creates the ability to be able to take the right actions at the right point in time and how you end up serving customers and how you end up serving employees. But it's also a company that's built on the culture of taking care of customers, taking care of people, and ultimately improving the human experience. And so the reason I bring that up is a lot of the ways in which my role as COO in the company and now more over the last year and a half or so as CEO has evolved has actually been quite continuous in many respects. And being very close to our culture, being focused on our customers, and yet as you go through change and much uncertainty and being able to help organizations stay tuned in to the way the world wants to operate next and paying attention to that. We use our own technology to help us with that as well. Yeah. But there are things that are happening in the world that we would have never imagined, right? And I think that would be probably true for many CEOs.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time to be a leader, I'm sure. And at the IPO, the ticket symbol now for Qualtrics is literally XM. So it's all about experience management when it comes to Qualtrics. But for someone who may be unfamiliar with that term, how would you summarize what experience management is?
Yeah, the ticker symbol is XM. It stands for experience management. Experience management is a new technology and software category that has been on a very high velocity of growth on a global level. And at the end of the day, we help companies create the ultimate advantage. And the ultimate advantage is around tuning into all of the things that customers and employees want for their companies to know, and then being able to know where to take action on that type of knowledge with empathy, with speed, and at scale. This is a system that actually allows any department in a company to be better at what they do. And if you look at a company like Barclays, for example, they run Qualtrics throughout many parts of their organization, but in the retail banking unit, for instance, they're able to tune into the places where there are opportunities to prioritize, creating a better customer experience, understand where there might be points in friction, finding ways to be able to serve the customer more effectively. And that can then manifest in the digital experience, in the app that someone's using to log in to interacting with the bank, or even in the way that the customer is treated when they walk into a retail location, for example. And so that's how experience management comes to life.
Yeah, and there's so much data that can plug into a system like this. I mean, there's any kind of online interactions, social media commentary about your business, the customer support conversations that people are having. Lots and lots of things can feed into it. So I wonder, is this a case of this is what a business that's scaling in the current business environment really needs to have? Because we talk a lot about these tech companies have the ability to scale really fast, but how do you manage every client, every customer when you're at a million users or a billion users or something like that?
Well, so first off, to your first point, what Qualtrics does for companies is we help companies connect with any form of interaction that a customer or an employee might have with an organization. And to examples that you gave, people communicate through social media, they communicate through a chat interaction, they interact through a mobile app or through a website or through a commerce experience. They may interact with a physical store or with an online delivery person, right? And so the range of ways in how a consumer might behave is far more significant and more varied today than what it may have been even 10 years ago. And so that's a very complex system for most businesses. And what Qualtrics does is we help to be able to streamline, We create a central knowledge kernel, and then we extract insights from that around sentiment, around preferences, around where there might be friction in the way that an organization is the best enabling the consumer or the business that they're trying to serve. And that uses technology that is things like sentiment analysis, language understanding, understanding emotion, and then we just make that possible to implement at scale so a product management department in a company can make better decisions, or so that a customer service agent can better serve their customer. And the type of data that we interact with is information that is naturally expressed without anyone ever being asked a question. Yeah. You know, what someone's expressing through social media or through the call center, or sometimes the organization asks the right question at the right moment in time to know what someone would rather prefer. And we bring all of that together. And then to the other part of your question, we've been able to scale and grow as a company because we built a software technology platform that many partners in an ecosystem of solution builders, practitioners, methodologists are able to build solutions that are specific to particular industries. And it's because we built this technology platform in the way that we built it that it has allowed our company to grow, but even more importantly, the customers that are using our platform to be able to grow and thrive in their particular markets.
Yeah. And there's a lot of focus on empathy and a human-centric approach with what you do at Qualtrics. And to me, it strikes me as trying to recreate the intimate business experiences of smaller businesses where you'd know every customer by first name and that kind of situation, trying to recreate that at scale for the modern world, essentially.
I love that example because if you go back many, many, many years ago, if you were able to walk into, let's say, a merchant and you were in your local community, the merchant would know who you are, they would know what your preferences are, they may know your family situation, and they were able to prescribe what might be most accommodating to your needs. You know, and it could be a product, it could be a service, whatever it is. They just knew you, right? And they were more and more relevant to you. But as organizations have become larger, it's very hard to maintain that spirit of the personalized connection, right? And at the end of the day, we as all human beings want to be able to be heard, we want to be understood, and then we want to know that the business that we are choosing to put our efforts to or spend our money with recognize us, appreciate what we're providing, take action based upon an input that we might provide, and ultimately create a better product, ultimately a brand that you ultimately want to spend more money with or that you want to be more connected to, right? And most organizations who are leaders in their industries do a wonderful job in living up to the brand promise through the products and the services and the way the employees treat you, and that gives you the customer experience that you might best connect to and then ultimately decide to spend more time and energy with that particular business. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this notion of empathy. Is someone understanding what your needs are, their ability to stand in your shoes and appropriately be able to best accommodate you through convenience, through more personalized products. And that can come to life in the form of a variety of ways, right? Through the human being you're interacting with all the way through to the digital product, the application or the mobile app or the website experience that you're interacting with.
And it's not just limited to customer experience, like it's got the whole employee experience aspect to it as well.
Yes.
And I have to ask, is it intimidating being in a company full of expertise in employee experience? Because if you're falling down on what you promise your employees, they're going to call you out on it because they have the data, they know.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is true that we hold ourselves to account as a company. We use our own employee experience technology. It is a platform that has allowed many large businesses and leaders in their industries to be able to more effectively tune into the needs of their employees, to be able to create higher levels of engagement, performance, do a better job of recruiting and retaining their employees, and ultimately creating cultures that often are differentiating versus competition. And of course, we use that technology internally as well. And it is right. It is very important for us to be the example to other industries around how we listen to our employees, how we take action, and how we create that same virtuous cycle, ultimately to be able to create better products that serve our customers.
And some of those 5,000 employees, I think that Qualtrics has globally, are based here in Dublin.
That's
and
right.
it's planning to expand. You're planning to expand here in Ireland?
Well, in 2021, we announced that we would be expanding by about 1,000 more employees throughout Europe, and Dublin is our European headquarters. And we're well on track with that expansion, and we continue to grow across Europe. But again, Dublin is the epicenter of how we operate across Europe.
Yeah, and the Qualtrics office here in Dublin is a fantastic space. I've been lucky enough to visit it myself, and it's got kind of all those bells and whistles that we've associated with big companies and the kind of accoutrements that they offer their employees. Has that approach been shifted in any way by the pandemic in terms of people wanting the option to be at home as opposed to in the office, or do you find that having those things encourages people to get back together in the office?
Well, I think the nature of work, and based upon our research, is such that people want flexibility to spend time on deep work, which might happen individually in a place where they're most productive. It might be in their home, it might be in a cafe, it might be within the office, for example. But at the same time, what employees also want is the opportunity to be able to create connection, collaboration, build relationships, connect with the culture. And so you have to have the ability to create a mixed mode based environment where you bring out the best of the organization. So the nature of the physical workspace is changing from not only what we see, but also what we are observing from the research that we've been doing around the world and what our customers are doing. And so you think about the nature of that physical space, and our Dublin headquarter location and how we're expanding it here is a good example of that, where it's a great home away from home. And the experiences that we create within that headquarter location will allow for some of the most deep and rich connections to take place amongst people, to connect to the culture, to connect with customers, to come up with ideas, which would be very difficult to do if you're just sitting in a remote work environment only by yourself. So it's the combination that really matters. It's that flexible work mode that will bring out the best in people and ultimately help create performance within the organization.
Yeah, and is it something that you're thinking kind of going forward in terms of expansion, that kind of flexibility needs to be built into the future of office spaces and that kind of thing?
Yes, and the purpose of the office space has to be considered as well. You know, it used to be where if you are doing mostly office work, where people would come together and say, this is where you do your work. But what's starting to change, and we're seeing this through global trends around the globe, is people are reevaluating what are the things that are particularly important to happen when people do come together, and then how does the physical space actually accommodate the best experience for people when they are together, such as collaboration, coming up with new ideas, testing new ideas, spending time with customers that come into the physical location and the experiences that might be created there, and with partners, for example, to that business. And then, of course, when people are away from work, it's just as important also to think about the digital work experience that's also being created. In fact, one of our technology product offerings under our employee experience product line is called the Employee Technology Experience. And what human resource leaders and IT leaders are doing now is they're using that part of the system to assess whether they've created the optimal digital experience, much like you would with a building physically, in order to bring out the best of some of the deep work that people might have when they're sitting on their own. Their job is to, deliver on their deliverables. It might be writing code, it might be working on a customer project of some sort or another. And so both experiences are important, that digital experience and the physical experience and how they come together.
You can't just leave one on the wayside and work on the other.
Yes.
Moving away from the future of work, I wanted to talk a little bit about your history. I believe it was 17 years you spent at Microsoft, and I read a story that within a few days you had a review meeting with Bill Gates, which I can't imagine how intimidating that might have been. But I'm wondering what you might have learned in terms of leadership from your time there as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast 17 years can go by. And I'm at Qualtrics in my 6th year, and I feel like I'm in a very early stage of what will be possible with where we're taking this company and where we're taking the XM category. But when I was at Microsoft, my 5th day in the company, I was in a Bill Gates review. And these reviews were ones that required a lot of preparation, but also ones where people were put on the spot based upon the intensity of how the product was being reviewed that you were building. And there's a few things that I learned from my time at Microsoft, and frankly kept me at Microsoft as long as I did, that actually brought me to Qualtrics. And I would say first and foremost is the culture. There's a very deep level of care and empathy and desire to be able to help customers be successful. That is a shared value that Qualtrics has, that existed at Microsoft, continues to exist to this day. The other part of it is the idea of what it means to create new innovation and breakthroughs for things that people are not necessarily telling you exactly of what they want. So it's what you think of as the unarticulated need. And a lot of that is at the heart of what Qualtrics does, is we help to be able to help organizations zero in on what are new things that people might want. During the pandemic, for example, how you shopped for groceries, how you had food and delivered to you, changed, or how you went about the restaurant experience changed. These weren't necessarily ways in which customers would tell you to do things, but you had to actually help organizations reimagine how they could actually play the role that they play with their customer experience. And so this theme of innovating and extending the art of the possible is at the heart of what Qualtrics is about. And it is very much in tune with the way that Microsoft has been running as a company as well. And so these are aspects that actually persist around how you lead a company. A lot of that is centered around customer obsession, which is one of our core values. We have what we call tacos, being transparent, being all in, being customer obsessed, acting as one team, and being scrappy in the way that you operate. And these are core values that guide our company, and frankly the way that we hold ourselves to account as leaders, including myself.
Yeah. And going a little bit further back even in history, I believe you grew up on a tree farm and even helped to plant about 600 trees. I'm curious how that might feed into your leadership style in terms of being really hands-on. And also just the aspect of choosing Qualtrics, was it an element of being a family-founded business and that attracted you to it?
Yeah, that's a very good, you said it very well. I grew up on the west coast of the United States in Southern California, and at a very early age learned to plant trees. We planted an orchard, and over 10, 12 years watched those trees grow and had to take care of them. And there's a work ethic, there's a degree of care on how you nurture, develop, appreciate what it takes to do things, but there's also an element of rolling up your sleeves and working with in our case it was our family, but those are values that shaped who I became, and learning to appreciate, to work with other people. And when I think about working with my colleagues and my teammates, there's a lot of very similar principles there. But even more importantly, when we work with our customers, we think of our customers as a part of our team. And our job is to help our customers succeed with their customers. And that requires rolling up the sleeves. It requires being humble and listening and tuning in and creating the spark of innovation, and frankly having opportunities to create success together and celebrating in that, going through the challenges together. But some of those things are actually what I learned at an early age, and then nurturing and caring for what you do in order to make something more possible together than you might have been able to do on your own.
Yeah. I'm sure there's lots that people can take away from that in terms of like adapting their own leadership styles. But as a leader who's faced into some crazy amounts of change in the last couple of years, is there a key piece of advice that you have for other leaders?
Well, I think a lot of this comes down to how well one tunes into people and what people want organizations to do, or what people want to be a part of. And a lot of that comes down to good listening. It comes down to empathizing and connecting with other people, being able to stand in their shoes, understand their reality, and then learning from that and turning that into action. And so if you're an individual leader, how well you're actually tuning into what's actually taking place with the people that you want to be a part of your team. If you are running a workforce, small, large, very significant, at the end of the day, you have to be able to bring them along with you. And doing a good job with that means that you've tuned in, you've listened, you've empathized, you've reconsidered the way that you think, and you've allowed other thinking to actually influence your own thinking to be able to create a better plan, a better strategy. And with customers, it's particularly important these days. A lot of times customers don't believe their organizations are listening to them and actually taking action. And so, often it just takes one negative experience for a customer to switch providers. Our research says that 60% of customers that have a negative experience with an organization will switch to another company, because what often happens is when there is a negative experience, that same organization doesn't take the time to listen or find a way to improve in a meaningful manner or even in a timely manner. And a lot of that goes back to this point around, hey, is your company operating on empathy? Are you operating on the desire to build trust? Are you actioning on things that you have an opportunity to learn from? And does that knowledge ultimately help you to be able to deliver breakthrough products, breakthrough services, breakthrough experiences that define your brand in your marketplace? So both on the employee front and on the customer front, at the end of the day, it comes down to empathy.
That's great. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Zig.
Thank you.